This episode of Intent on Purpose features somatic coach Victoria Duarte of the Healing Arts Center in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We talk about and define trauma, healing, and what it really takes to move forward. Victoria challenges the idea of one size fits all healing as we explore how even small moments can shape our lives. And while true healing often requires more than one approach or one person, if you've ever been in an emotional place and needed help, or are so now, or love someone who is, this powerful conversation is for you. But wait, maybe you should listen anyway, because this life ain't easy, and you might want to be prepared. You're listening to Intent on Purpose with me, your host, Laura Hansen Breksa. Thank you for being with me here today, Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
The Intent on Purpose podcast is all about people who put their time, energy, and talents towards something they believe in. What do you believe about healing trauma?
Healing trauma for me it's not this cookie cutter one size approach. And unfortunately, it feels like there's a lot of great marketing out there. There's a lot of great people out there selling this. If you do this one thing, you will be healed. And for the most of us, it's not that simple. Our trauma reshaped us. It changed us in ways. It changed our life. It could be that you lost your partner. It could be a car accident that you're terrified to get back in the car and drive. It could be something extremely different, and this one size fits all, it tells us, the person that's going through the pain, that they're not enough. And we've been told that over and over again in so many different ways, right? If this healing modality doesn't help you, it doesn't change you, it doesn't support you, that something clearly has to be wrong with you. That's the message that we receive. And so for me, it's the idea that your trauma is complex. You as a human being need additional support in how to maneuver through your life experiences so that you're not living in fear, so that you're not living in this experience that the other shoe is going to drop, because that's what generally happens to us when we have when we have an experience that terrified us, is that once we're not allowed to be too happy, we have to always be waiting for the next thing to happen to us. And it allows there to be space for, when we're healing, for us to learn ways to be compassionate with ourselves so that we're not bleeding onto our children. We're not taking it out on our partner. We're not taking it out on the very people that are innocent, like our kids. We're learning that very idea of this pain stops here now.
I really liked what you said about when this cookie cutter the template of solution doesn't work, that you think something wrong with you. It also, I thought of, is that when it doesn't work, it gives you an excuse to stop. Because living in your misery can become comfortable. What do you think about that?
Very much so. I think we don't look at, there's two things that happen. One, it's hard to take responsibility for ourselves, in the sense of, it's hard to, if your life has been difficult and it's been challenging and you've lived with this anxiety, you've lived with this fear for as long as you can remember, it's almost like it has its own identity. And so for someone in that kind of pain, it is difficult when they go to that therapist or they go to that coach and that person doesn't understand what is happening to them. And instead of them feeling better, it's almost like they're a guinea pig. And so, yeah, it's really hard to make another call. It's really hard to find another resource because the first time it feels like something failed and they're not sure if it's them or the healing modality. And it's very rare that we're looking at the healing modality as, well, maybe that's the problem, right? And
Oh,
so, the way I look at it, and it's probably not a great comparison, but if we get a bad haircut, you don't go back to the same hairdresser, but you probably still continue to find someone out there that knows
yeah.
and is skilled, right? Right?
Some girls
Like you don't stop
shag
at the
forever.
first at the first
Yeah.
experience, right?
Yes.
But for
Yeah.
some reason, when it comes to right? When it comes to therapy, it's like, it's for a lot of people, it's that one time. It's that one
Mhm.
experience, it's that
Mhm.
one time. And my hope is that if someone has had a bad experience, that they look for resources of ways to find a person that could be best supportive for them. And I know that what I'm asking can be very challenging. And
Mm.
something that we do at our office is that we keep a full list of different resources. We inform people of different types of therapy. People are often surprised that they think that only talk therapy is available when, there's EMDR, there's brain spotting, there's walk and talk therapy, there's equine therapy. There's so many different types of therapy, and I'm be clear that I'm not a therapist, I'm just a somatic coach. But it's this idea of helping people to understand what else is available, what other resources would best support you, and sometimes what happens for my clients that are walking through my doors is either it's their first time, they're terrified of therapy because they're afraid it's going to change their career, um, or they've graduated a therapy program. So their therapists have said, you're doing great. We've come to an end. You've been with me for 2 years. And they feel like there's something else that's needed and they're wanting additional support. And so that's sometimes who my clients are, or, the person that came across me through, I saw your video. I have seen, you got recommended to me by such and such. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel so lost and confused. Will you help me? And I will never say no, but I may also say, and can we also get you additional support? Because I do believe in the idea of building a village, building this idea of, you know, and it's this idea of we need support. We don't look at food and go, this one food is going to give me all the nutrition that I need, all the things that my body needs, right? But
Mhm.
we do tend to do that when we're looking at getting support. It's like we hook onto this idea of one person, one type of therapy, when it's possible that you might need additional support to get you through. And these are lifetime experiences that you're going to have. You're not going to go to therapy for the rest of your life. You're not going to have to go every week. You're not going to need all these people, but you might need more than one type of therapy or more than one type of provider. And that's the language that we try to explain to people.
So I have 2 questions, and I totally agree. That'd be really horrible just to eat sweet potatoes for the rest of your life. Plus, you'd turn orange. So, what's the difference between a coach and a therapist? And when you work through one trauma, then do you discover another trauma? Those are my 2 questions right now for you.
So, the difference between a coach and a therapist is, well, a therapist has usually more education. They usually have more training, more education. There's a board that licensing board. Coach is a bit different, depending on the background of the individual. There's less training and education and all that. And so part of what that's why I'm always very big on please go see a trauma informed therapist. Um, and with coaching, again, there is no ethics, there is no board. You've got to really be very mindful of the person that you are sitting across from, that you are sharing space with, that you are opening up with, because there's no licensing board if they're doing something that's unethical. And there's a lot of educating, I think, that we need to do, because a lot of times people do use a coach instead of a therapist. And, I know for myself as a coach, I've been doing this for 15 years. It's important that the person that you're sitting across from understands and is transparent. There are a lot of coaches that are trying to pretend to be therapists, and that's not that's not okay. You know, we actually have been very blessed with because of our integrity and our ethics. We have we're vetted through the Navy SEAL Foundation and through other military foundations because we understand our line. We do not cross that line. If someone comes to my office and they're there for a specific reason, how to move through shame, how to move through a flashback, how to create a safety container when they're feeling overwhelmed or anxious. Through our work, which has happened, they've discovered something else in their childhood. Maybe it was sexual abuse, maybe it was something else that they uncovered as they've gone through, different types of healing modalities that we work through. Um, Sometimes that does get uncovered, or, it gets uncovered not because of the work that we're doing, but, they're sitting with their family. This has happened before. They were sitting with their family and, something is discovered of their childhood that they had repressed and they had no idea. And so it's my time I don't abandon my clients, but I will direct them to the right person that can support them. And I will say, I'm going to step back in the sense of like, let's get you into the office, let's get you the appointments, let's get you the support that you need. I will always be here. I might even, give them free sessions so that if they're having to pay for both, they don't feel financially overwhelmed in that sense. I try to do my best to take away any barrier that there could possibly be for them to not get the right therapy. Because unfortunately, I have seen the horrors of what happens when a coach doesn't understand that there is a fine line and they guinea pig their clients. And there's no
Mhm.
kinder word. I mean, they're much meaner words and much more cruel words, but for the sake of being on the video, I will be kind. And yeah, no, it's not okay. And I'm seeing them as my clients. They come find me. I do a lot with. I work with narcissistic abuse. I work with people who have been with spiritual trauma abuse, and so they find their way to the door because I am not going to gaslight you. I am going to sit there and I believe you and I want you to get the best help because you living with this and you blaming yourself, because that's what happens. We blame ourselves when things go wrong. Right. And I'm going to help you identify with, hey, you didn't do anything wrong, but let's get you the best support that's available for you. And I'm so sorry that your Reiki provider or your life coach or whoever it was abused the relationship that they had with you. But let's not stop here. Let's get you the best place of you getting what you need.
Yeah, they're re-traumatized when they're getting help with their trauma.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question. You mentioned some of the types of trauma, which I really appreciate you describing some of those because when I asked you what you believed in, I didn't ask you what type of traumas. What do you do when someone dismisses the level of trauma? Because you mentioned on your webpage, and I know you work with those who have had military trauma, which
Mhm.
is beyond description for those who haven't been in those situations. What happens when someone is dismissing a childhood trauma that might have just been I'll give you one of mine because I
Mhm.
understand what this is. I'm learning to play the piano. My mom's sitting next to me. My father's laying down. Every time I hit a wrong note, he goes, "Ugh, ugh," and acts like he's jumping up. I hear that voice when I make mistakes. Now I
Mhm.
would is that trauma? And then I think,
Mhm.
well, I'm still hearing it. I think it is, but it was little. And I can dismiss it easily because to someone else, that's nothing. Now, that's a little thing. Is that trauma or is it not?
I
It's a
think
little
anytime that our body is having that type of visceral reaction, that there is still activated pain in there, right? There's still an activated response that you are having. And as a child, every time your father made that sound and it triggered the response of, I'm not allowed to make a mistake. And you weren't allowed to express yourself and say, Dad, you're not respecting me. You had to get silent and quiet. And every time you make a mistake and you're still back in that cycle of blaming yourself, of not feeling like you can really express how you feel, that you have to be this perfect human being. Every time that we do that, we're just reliving in that cycle. There's no
mhm,
space for where's the progress here? Where's the change? Where's the transformation? And so for me, it's really just looking at any little thing that we are relationshiping with that's having a visceral reaction in our body, and that it now is this now it's not only is it taking over our body, it's making decisions on our behalf. If that very thing that you just described where you blame yourself and you are staying in that, well, you're blaming yourself for an hour. We're blaming ourselves the whole day. We're now blaming ourselves, when we go to sleep, and then when we wake up, we're still in that cycle. There's no change there, right? And so for me, it's looking at that little moments and giving yourself compassion, giving yourself some way of comfort, because as a child, that's what we were looking for. We were looking for comfort, but nobody provided that for us. And so we've adapted through life and navigated through very difficult life experiences, and the very thing that the majority of us are so hungry for is compassion. And if I look at my military community and what they are deficient usually in is that ability to have self-compassion, and the spouses, and the children. And so I think that's what we're desperately wanting so much, is to learn how to give ourselves that little bit of, hey, you made a mistake and that's okay. But we're waiting for someone else to tell us that. We're waiting for someone else to say, hey, what you did, it's okay. We'll figure it out. And that's wonderful and great. And sometimes we get that, but that's still needing approval versus giving
mhm,
yourself that validation. Because when you can do that to yourself, that's a source of empowering. And when we look at when we were in trauma, we were in fear. And if we can empower ourselves, that's a different association with the experience that we're having. And so for me, it's teaching clients how to de escalate those sensations that they're having and reintroducing a new sensation that's more supportive for them and helpful.
mhm. So a different how you can tell, let me see if I understand you correctly. How you can tell if a moment was traumatic for you, how you define trauma, is if you're still having a visceral physical reaction, if that moment is still making decisions for you, and if there is still a fear or a strong emotion attached. Then you can say that you have that moment is trauma, and it would probably be in your best interest to deal with that. Do I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
whether that moment was you dropped ice cream cone or you had a bigger one, it doesn't matter the magnitude or comparing it to somebody else. That moment is still interfering with happiness or progression. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I think a lot of times we're chasing, this idea of being happy. We're chasing this idea of being successful, and we don't realize how those moments that we have categorized as insignificant actually mattered, because if your body is still holding on to those moments and to those experiences, they did matter, because in that moment, you didn't feel important. in that moment, you felt invisible. You feared that something was going to happen if you spoke out. You feared that something was going to happen if you advocated for yourself, right? And
Mm.
so something happened in those moments, and they might seem tiny, but they stand out somehow, you know? And a lot of times it's discovering those tiny little moments where that you don't understand why in a meeting you can't stand up for yourself, that you feel trapped with your in-laws or whatever this experience is that you're having. There's a negative association that's happening. Well, what was the root memory? Well, what happened? And how can we change that so that this narrative doesn't continue, that your body can feel safe, that you can feel like you can speak up, and I love that, everyone talks about having boundaries, but nobody talks about what happens when your insides are crying and screaming, when having a boundary feels so threatening.
So you're talking about the mother-in-law calls, and you can almost hear the last time she said something nasty to you, or an image flashes in your mind of the red dress she gave you when you were, or whatever it is. Is that also the visceral reaction, let alone the nervousness in your gut?
Yeah. So anytime, if your mother in law is not in the room and you're sitting in your own home, you're sitting in the comfort of your own space. And then your mother-in-law calls you, and all of a sudden, it feels like she is right there beside you. And it's like, some of my clients will, describe their mother-in-law like a dragon, and they feel like their dragon is in the room and is present. And you're having a reaction. You feel like you have no power, even though
Mhm,
she's not in your space. She's not
mhm,
even
mm,
criticizing you. There's nothing happening except that she is calling you, but your body is responding to the very last conversation or the last experience that left you feeling vulnerable, that left you feeling shaken, that left you feeling like, the anger, and so if you're not attending to that experience and it's still alive in you, then that feeling is always going to be with you, right? So there's no change. We can pray. I pray that one day my mother in law accepts me. I pray that one day I can be in the same space and not want to kill her, right? But if you're having that feeling doesn't go away until you make a different decision of how to attend it. Because in that moment of discomfort, your body is needing you to feel safe, because the reality is that you don't have to pick up that phone. The reality is that you are safe in your own home, hopefully, right? And you don't have to answer that call in that moment. You can let it go to voicemail. You can let yourself go for a walk, or you can do some somatic work. You could do some breathing exercises. You could do some yoga. You could do some running. You could punch something. You could do something to move that energy out of your body, right? But in that moment, when we get those calls, it's like all we can feel is the internal is screaming at us. And then it's this place of like, I have to do this. If I don't do this, there's a consequence to this, right? And we live in a world that when we feel so angry inside or whatever the sensation is, we're so afraid of the consequence that we attend to whatever it is that we could prevent a consequence from happening, versus attending to the very parts of ourselves that are saying we're separated from safety right now. And what we very much need is to be attending to ourselves so that we can feel safe. Because when we can feel safe, we feel empowered.
hmm.
Um,
Disclaimer, I love my mother-in-law. She's passed, but she was wonderful. I just have to
So do
put
I.
that just just put that disclaimer. So you're a somatic coach. Explain somatic. What
So
does that
somatic
mean?
so somatic coaching is the idea that um, our body is our body has responses, negative and positive. I don't really believe that there's such a thing as negative, but there can be discomfort, right? So, heat. Uh, all of a sudden, you can feel your heart rate go up. All of a sudden, you can feel that your breath is shallow. All of a sudden, you can feel a restriction somewhere in your body. And so, the idea of being able to just unwind from that restriction and learning how to kind of to come back to a pleasant feeling in your body, right? So the fact that we're not running from our anger, we're not running from our fear. We're just learning how to be with our body. That's how I look at somatic is we have these feelings, these sensations, and they tend to consume us and we don't know what to do with them. And then we try to ignore them or run away from them or instead of just knowing how to be with them and knowing how to express them, knowing how to move through them. And so being able to give them space to go, your anger, it needs to move through you. It needs to find its way out of your body through sound, through movement, through knowing that it's okay for you to be upset. And that's the very thing, that I love about somatic work. It's not that you're running from it. You're actually telling your body, hey, it's okay that you feel this way. It's
Mhm.
not okay if you take it out on someone, but it's okay that you feel this way. You have every right to feel this way. And I think that, that's what I love about it. And I know I'm not comparing it to other healing modalities, but I think there's so much out there. That it's about feeling like you shouldn't feel this way. You should feel a different way, that you should be happy all the time. Oh, that's great and wonderful, but that's not real. That's not human. If I was a robot, that would work. But I'm a human being. I have life experiences that are going to make me feel different ways. And as a woman, I'm done with, this idea of like, calm down, take a breath. No, no, no. Let's get mad, but let's do it in a way that doesn't
And
destroy our world.
mm,
Mark is the artist and I'm the writer. And so people who love to do art usually tend to go to Mark, my business partner, who loves to just help people. They'll do these big art projects and just different ways of expressing. And he is a retired Navy SEAL. And so he's very much about supplying people with whatever they need and just letting them do whatever they need to get it out. I'm a little bit different. I love writing. And so sometimes it's sitting with someone and going, okay, so if your anger had an image, what image would this be? And then they write about the image of whatever this is. It's a volcano and it's erupting and there's lava going everywhere. And, it's just a way of using imagery, but through writing to get it to come out. I've had people that will explain their breathing like wearing a corset. They're like, I've never worn a corset, but I bet this is what it feels like. And them explaining how it's tightening and where in their body it's tightening. And then it's, well, if that's how you feel, what would it feel like to have a breath? And if they're not ready to have that full exhale, they're writing about what that would give them. And so my background is dancing and acting and theater. And so I've incorporated dance because when I was a little girl, it was the very thing that would actually give me relief was to put on some music and just dance it away. And so I will do with clients small movements if they're not comfortable with the dance idea, but it's the idea of how does this feeling want to move through your body? And so, sometimes it feels like it's a snake moving through my body. And so they'll just move as if they were a snake. And it's very organic. It's not a lot of thinking. It's just connecting to different ways to go, okay, if we're living in our head and we are analyzing how we feel, we're just staying in the justifications and the stories and the narratives and the different reasons, right? But when we can touch and get in tune with our body, we're giving it room for it to not take over ourselves. It's like, usually what happens after 2 songs, people sit down and they're like, "Ah, I feel so much better because
Mhm.
not only did I witness their anger and not try to I wasn't using shame as a way of like, you really shouldn't feel this way. You've got so many great things happening in your life." No, what we were doing is we're moving it. So we're giving it a place for it to exist. We're giving it a place for it to be seen. We're giving it a place for it to be witnessed. Because in life, when we're angry, we really want someone to just witness our anger and not change it, not fix it, not minimize it, not tell us that we're going to, oh, get better. When we're upset, when we're frustrated, we just want someone to go, "Hey, I see you. I hear you." And so we do the same thing with anger. We're giving anger a space to go, "You're seen. I want to see you. I want to be with you. I am done burying you. I'm done hiding you. I'm done pretending that I'm okay. Anger,
Mhm.
you are right here, right beside me. And I
Mhm.
want to show you some respect. So I'm going to move with you. I'm going to breathe with you. I'm going to give you space instead of what we have been taught, especially as women, get over it. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's screaming, but it needs a place to go.
That's so funny. The Eagles, the group, of course, the Eagles, the group. They have a song called "Get Over It." It was our family theme song. A little. I don't know what else, because there's not a rock song about feeling the feels. So our anger needs a space. And do happy feelings need a space?
Yes, very much so. I think it's just as uncomfortable it is to be with anger as it is to be with joy. A lot of us have been told it's not safe to have joy in our life, and I find that especially with the military community, having
Mhm.
joy is a very difficult emotion. And so, yes, being able to learn to create safety around joy and to be able to express it and to know that it has a place and it has a meaning and it has a purpose. And there's some of us that have an association with you're not allowed to be too happy. Bad things happen if you're too happy, and that's the association with it. And so that's going to have a response of shame of you, I can't be this happy. There's a shame response there. So learning how to create the safety container so that you can express in joy, or when you're feeling pure joy, which is what happens with my clients when they work with me over time, is that they experience, I I have joy and I don't have to hold on to that something wrong is going to happen in my life if I'm this happy. And then learning how to express it, and then learning how to like, I can come in to see you and I don't have a problem. That's wonderful. That's a great place to be. And so, because I think, there's so much that we bond over having issues and having problems, and we feel like we can't get help if everything is going well. You, you know, you might want it with someone because life is going well, because there might be something that you get out of that. And it doesn't have to always be from a deficiency. It can be from a place of like, actually things are going really well and I want to learn how to maintain this, right? And so joy and grief and anger and all the feelings, they all have a place, and they all have a place to express through words, dance, movement. We want to hear it all. Our bodies are storytellers. We just want to learn how to move with it and express it.
It's kind of funny. I bet if we took track of problems, they would happen whether we were happy or sad. I think we just remember, because you're saying, "Oh, one thing after another," and then we say, "Oh, I was happy," and of course something bad happened. They're both true. So things don't happen just because you're happy. Numerically, they're gonna
Right?
happen. So it's kind of funny how we trick ourselves into believing that, because both are true. So when someone's trapped in a feeling, 'cause that's when they seek help, is when they cannot take it anymore. They find themselves trapped. They get to the breaking point, I guess is what they call it. So not trapped, almost broken. We have such funny words for all that, don't we? The language we
Mhm,
use,
mhm,
they're all pretty violent too. Breaking point, trapped. What are some language? Feeling small, feeling smushed,
mhm. It's a weakness.
just about to lose it.
Mhm.
When we finally go get help, or we don't, and we do harm to ourselves or to others, take drastic measures, or we lose till we lose it, till we blow our top. These are terms we all use. There are many times where people hit a wall with their trauma and they know they can't deal with it on their own. They go to friends to help, they go to a parent for help, they get a book, they get online help, they research it. At what point do people need more professional help? Where is that line?
That's a great question. I think, it's gonna be that's a very individualized, in my perfect world, if I had someone that I was looking at going, "Hey, you really need help," it's when someone has when their fear is making decisions that they're regretting, when they're looking at their life of going, wow, if I had only not done that, right? That domino effect of decisions that they're making, at their first poor decision that they made, I'd love for them to come in and get help. That's my ideal world. It's not going to happen that way probably, but if someone out there is listening to this and they're in anxiety. And I've been there. I've lived through anxiety. I've experienced it. And I'm very honest with people. I don't sit on any type of platform. Um, y- and it is the very thing that it's so hard to make any decisions. It's so hard to do things. It's like you have all these good intentions, but you don't know what to do and how to get out of this thought process that you're going through. And every time that you think that you're going to make a change, you have more evidence that you're a failure because of the things that you were doing. And that's all critical thinking that we do. And that's the ego taking over. That's the inner critic, however we want to name it. But if we can start going, okay, I'm going to make one phone call. I'm going to make one phone call. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get the support that I need. Instead of turning to your friend and asking for another piece of advice, ask them, do you know anyone that could help me? Do you know a therapist that would be supportive? Do you know where I could go with these symptoms? If you go to your doctor's appointment, hey, do you, you know, is can I get a referral? Can I get a recommendation? I think we're all waiting for that perfect moment, of awakening to go, this is the time, this is the experience. And get in, get in. I wish someone had looked at me when I was going through college and working three
Mm,
jobs, putting myself through um, my undergraduate and doing everything that I could just to survive one day to the next day and not knowing if I was going to not knowing how I was going to get to the end of that, how I was going to graduate with three jobs and not knowing how
mhm.
to handle it all, just overwhelmed and feeling so anxious that I didn't know if how it was all gonna work out in my favor, and I had a history of things not working out in my life, so I felt like I was setting myself up to be doomed versus setting myself up for a great future. I wish someone had said to me, "Hey, you don't have to live like this. You don't have to live in these anxious thoughts that you're gonna fail at this." I wish someone had said something to me, so if you're listening to this and you're out there and you feel like nobody understands you, trust me, there's a lot of people who feel the same way that you do. You're not alone.
No, you're not. You're not alone. Tell me, do men seek mental health out as they should, or as much as you wish they would?
So, from my lens, And because we have a male coach in our office, we do see men getting help. We do see people, sometimes it's their spouse is dropping them off. And that's not an exaggeration. But, there is an encouragement that is happening. Can we see that on a broader spectrum? Yes. Would I wish that, there's still not the stigma around getting help, especially for men? It's hard to think that sitting in a room for an hour and talking, that's a hard image for a lot of men to see and go, oh yeah, I want to have that experience. I want to sit in a room with a stranger, open up, and talk about how I feel. Yeah, that sounds like a great hour. And so that's why we do encourage people to look for different types of therapy so that you can get over this idea that you're sitting there for an hour. Some people can find comfort in that imagination, of that image of them being in that office space. And for some people, that is terrifying, that idea. And so, walk and talk therapy might be the thing for you. Equine therapy might be the thing for you. Art therapy might be the thing for you. Um, Creative expression therapy might be the thing for you. And so, finding different ways so that you can also get over this image of sitting with a stranger and opening up, that is a very vulnerable place for a lot of people, and especially men that were taught at a very young age. No, you're not allowed to have emotion. If you have emotion, go somewhere else. That's uncomfortable, and so for males to feel comfortable, it is about also exploring different options so that we can get past this image that we see on TV or our association on social media of what the limitation is. And yes, I would love to see more men getting the help that they deserve and that they need. And we need more male providers to create that space. I think that's also lacking, but there are some great male therapists out there.
Because you talked about taking your feelings out on people around you because it's their wives they take their feelings out on, or their girlfriends, which is just a vicious, nasty circle.
It is, right? And, I've worked with enough males who have been in that position where they're taking it out on their spouse. And the very thing that I usually hear, and it's a very authentic thing, is I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to be this asshole anymore. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get on top of this. And then learning different ways of managing and dealing with their anger, and so that they're not taking it out on the person that they love, they're not taking it out on their children. They don't want to be it's the people that I see, they don't want to be monsters to their children. They don't want to be. And so, in that idea of like, okay, so if you're at that point, you learning how to move, or you learning how to sing, or you learning how to do something with this anger, it takes away the, "I'm never gonna do that," because it's this desperate need of, "Well, I don't wanna be that jerk, so these are my options? Okay, let me try that," I always share this one story of, I had a client that came to see me. He was seeing other therapists, but he came to see me for his anger, and he looked at me and said, Look, I've tried all these different things, nothing is helping. But I don't wanna be this guy that's taking it out on his wife. I hate that I'm doing this." And it was a very genuine it's a very genuine thing. Every time he goes in trainings, he gets deployed or whatever, he's got the longest honey-do list and he's doing it all. He wants to check it all off. He really wants to his wife to remember him and to think of him as this loving guy. But he had a season where work was really difficult for him, and he was coming home grumpy, and he was taking it out on the very person that has been his best friend, who has supported him throughout his whole career, has, been the person that is up waiting for him, having dinner, going, "I just want to hear about your day." And he's just a grumpy, jerk and taking ownership of that. He wasn't hiding that. But he didn't know what to do with it. And so the very thing that I asked him to do, which he looked at me like I had two heads and looked at me like I was the craziest person that he ever met. I said to him, well, if these work meetings are the things that are creating this aggression and you're waiting until you get home to you know, to process it, you're thinking about it on your drive, you're hoping by the time you get home, you're okay. This isn't working for you. What is the very thing that you can do that's creative that would support you? And he is a musician and loves his guitar, plays his guitar. And he was waiting until he would get home to play. But by the time he would get home, he really just wanted to wreck his guitar. And so the invitation was, why don't you take your guitar to work? Why don't you have your own private office? Why don't you start playing music before you
Mm.
go to the meeting and after you go to the meeting? And, you could be a soothing song. It could be a rock song. It could be whatever you want. It could be a song that you make up. But it's this idea of, why are we waiting until this perfect moment to settle ourselves down? He had so much anxiety going into the meeting. He would have anxiety during the meeting, and then he would have anxiety after the meeting. And so by him being able to create some disruption in his anxiety and give himself a way to comfort himself instead of just being in his head about how it was going to go all wrong, or how things are just how he was going to have an argument with this certain person, or how he didn't want to sit with a certain person, or all the things that were going through his head, he was learning how to just give it space of something else, something that actually gave him pleasure, that gave him a sense of control, that gave him a sense of comfort. And so he'd walk into these meetings in a different energy. And funny enough, these meetings, it would just be, he was having a different experience with
Mhm.
also during the meetings, because he wasn't so filled with anxiety of it going wrong, that there were times that it was actually a good meeting, that nothing really happened. It was uneventful. But because he was able to process all that, then his reptilian brain was also in this place of, he didn't have to be in a threat response for hours.
Mhm.
He was just able to maneuver it through it like he used to be. Meetings at one point, they were fun and exciting, or however you associate meetings with. They weren't this threatening, terrifying experiences. And so my whole point in sharing that is, if we can get back to having some sense of comfort when we're anxious, instead of waiting until we get home, until we're waiting until we get in the shower, we're waiting until we can have time to go for a walk. If we can start comforting ourselves in that moment, in those experiences, it decreases the chances of us becoming grumpy and taking it out on the very people that care about us.
Great advice. Where can people find you?
You can check us out at www.healingartsbb.com.
And who can find you? Why do they, I
Every-
mean, who can get you help?
We work with everyone. So if you are needing additional support, if you're in therapy and just want to have someone that can help you learn different ways of relaxing, learning different ways of calming down your anxiety, we'd love to support you. If you don't have a therapist, but have done therapy in the past, we'd love to work with you. If you have never experienced therapy, but you're just going through, experiences where you just need a little additional support, you're always welcome to share space with us. We're just here as a resource to help you learn that you're not broken. You just need to learn healthy ways how to deal when anxiety takes over, or when your fear response is telling you that it's the driving force in your life. It doesn't have to be.
Thank you very much, Victoria. 5 takeaways from my conversation with Victoria Duarte. Healing isn't one size fits all. There's no single method that works for everyone. You might go to one kind of therapy. That doesn't work. Go to another kind. Try one. Maybe there'll be 2 at the same time. Don't give up. Small moments can be real trauma. You don't have to have a big thing happen to you. Pay attention. Think about it. Don't compare traumas. If it hurts you, it hurts you. If it stops you, it stops you. Get some help. Your body holds the story. Trauma lives in your physical sensations. It can be nightmares, tightness, anxiety, shutdown. And somatic work helps you release it out of your body. This is what we learned from Victoria. The right support matters, and it's okay to switch, like I just talked about. Switch it around. Get the help you need. And you don't have to wait until you break. You don't have to wait. Don't be someone else's trauma.